I just got rid of this constant feeling of guilt, which I'm sure so many moms have. Like you feel like you're not doing anything well enough. I wasn't, with my kids and connecting with them enough. I wasn't doing my job as an entrepreneur enough, and I wasn't taking care of myself and my body enough. So I really like had to take space and time to like sift through my day to day and make sure that everything I was doing was contributing to me feeling my best, and also my kids, and also my relationship, and also my business. And then everything else kind of just like faded away.
This next episode is so, so good. When I was starting this platform, I made a commitment that I was only going to do this if I could show up 100% real and authentic and find people who were willing to do the same. I wanted to bring you people that really go deep and talk about the things that we as women, whether we experience them, we think about them, we stress about them, but we don't always talk about, or perhaps we don't feel like we have someone in our life that we can trust enough to talk about with. In this episode, Lauren Berlingeri shows up just that way. She is the co-founder of one of the most incredible companies, HigherDOSE, which we'll talk about in the episode. She is a health enthusiast, gorgeous fitness model, and just completely real woman who talks about the struggle of PTSD after the birth of her twins. What I love about Lauren is that she figured out how to slowly dig herself out of that hole by using some really incredible health tools. And she shares all that in here. Not only did she do that, but she wanted to help other women do that. And so she created this amazing YouTube series called Biohack Hers. We'll make sure to link everything in the show notes so that you can access all this stuff, but just be prepared to hear from a woman who has gone through the depths and tried so many things, and will tell you exactly how they all turned out. You're not going to want to miss this one, and you're absolutely going to want to share this with all your girlfriends. Enjoy. So excited to have you here. This is Lauren Berlingeri. She, along with Katie Capps, is the co-founder of HigherDOSE, one of my absolute favorite companies as far as health hacking and tools and things that have majorly impacted my health as a mom. We're going to talk about that all more in a minute. But first, I just want to give you a proper introduction. Lauren is a holistic nutritionist, a health coach, a model, and had your own show, the Women versus the Workout, which I actually did some recon on. You're pretty badass, if I can say. I saw you go through like a Navy SEAL training, riding a BMX bike with a BMX expert. But the reason I really wanted to bring you on, Lauren, is to talk about your company. And again, we'll get into that. It's one of my favorite tools. And then also this incredible series that you and your partner, Katie, have created, Biohack Hers. And what that's about that I see, and I want to hear from your perspective, is really incorporating the women into this biohacking space that previously has been male dominated.
It's such an amazing community and space that you can learn so much from, but for some reason it is mainly male dominated, giving solutions for men when women are the original biohackers. We just never called ourselves that. Mm-hmm. And then another thing to consider is that women have been mainly left out from science and research. Women weren't even obligated to be a part of research until like 1980 or something like that, which is kind of crazy. And even still today, men are 6 times more likely to be used. And like they only like to use women like after they've had babies for ethical reasons. And as we know, like women are totally different at all different stages in their life and hormone cycle and goals. So it's an amazing space that you have to navigate with intuition and, your community, and like find the ways to like dumb it down a little bit to get like the basic essence of it without pushing yourself too hard, so that you're not raising cortisol levels, putting your body into fight or flight, and more in rest and digest, which is where women thrive in, more of that rest and digest, because that supports our hormones, whereas men actually do thrive in that high cortisol hunter-gatherer phase, and it really helps boost testosterone. So we do have to navigate this space a little differently than men do, but nonetheless, it's my favorite community. I learned so much. And some of the things I've been introduced to have changed my life more than anything.
Awesome. And I know we're going to touch on that later in this episode, but just kind of scaling back for anyone who's not familiar with the term biohacking, it's essentially upgrading your body or physiology by using these outside tools. So I think by now most people have heard of things like cryotherapy and red light and sauna. And then in your the season of biohackers, you guys explore so many other tools, from vaginal rejuvenation to some psychedelic natural experiences through breath work. And again, just thank you for doing that, because like you said, not enough people are really talking about the way that we as females need to do it differently.
Correct. And just our goals are different than men are, right? Like we're thinking about how we recover from having a baby, or like how to detox before we have a baby. And that stuff's just not really covered,
Mm-hmm.
with the male biohacking space, but yet the technologies and philosophies and offerings in the biohacking space totally support us there.
100%. I've talked a lot on my platforms about how I got hit with neurological Lyme disease. And at the time I was impacted with it, I'm a chiropractor, I'm married to a chiropractor. So we lived a very natural lifestyle. And thank God I have a ton of resources around me. But as a mom of three, I mean, our youngest was 1. And then I think our boys were 4 and 6. I literally, like, for a couple of weeks, like, lost brain function. And it was so, so scary. And, it really set me on this trajectory of, one, putting my health absolutely first, no matter what,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is so important for us as women. I know you can relate to that. And then two, it's part of why I created this podcast is I want women, especially, to have really easy access to, like, okay, what is this thing? Tell me how it works, why it works, and help me filter out if it's something I need. When do I need it? How do I use it? All those things. We need things to be really simple in our lives.
Yeah. And solutions outside of the Western world of like medication, which we all know is sometimes more of like a whack-a-mole approach where it like treats the symptom, but not the deep root. And I'm not cutting it for the benefits of it, because like if there's a tragic experience where you've been in a car accident, or you've tried all the natural routes, that's definitely the way to go. But there's so many things that you can do before you get there to try to like heal yourself naturally, and the information's just not out there and it's not available. So at HigherDOSE, what we're trying to do is just make this information and this technology and the solutions more available to everyone.
Absolutely. And so your Biohackers, the series is on YouTube. If anyone hasn't heard of it, seen it, watched it, you have to check it out. It's life-changing. And again, we'll go into greater detail later, but let's dive right into some of the incredible therapies that you guys have created at HigherDOSE.
Yeah, so originally HigherDOSE started with infrared spa locations in New York City. We had shared partnerships with like Equinox, 11 Howard, Standard, 60 Hotel, where we had our spa locations within the hotels and shared wellness centers. So it was kind of like a tanning salon models for infrared saunas, which was incredible. We really got the brand out there, built an amazing community that way. But about 4 years ago, we really realized that we wanted to bring infrared to the masses, and it was going to be really hard doing that through locations. And then also bring the healing power of infrared saunas to people's homes, because the infrared sauna, it's really an amazing thing, but it's something you should incorporate into your lifestyle and into your like daily, weekly routine, versus just like a one-off time going once every month or here or there, because it does have such amazing benefits. And we really do believe in like everyday detox. So we created something called the sauna blanket as our first product, which is virtually a take-home experience to our infrared sauna. It's far infrared heat. So you get the same detoxifying, calming, recovery, glowing skin, and euphoric benefits that you get from our saunas. And we just saw the demand for the sauna blankets be like immediate. Like everyone got it that tried it. They were obsessed with the experience. And of course, having it in the comfort of your own home was even better, because like who wants to go somewhere and sweat and have to shower there afterwards and then go home afterwards, right?
And it just fits into moms, especially moms and busy, women's lifestyle.
Exactly. So when the pandemic hit and we were forced to close all of our locations, it allowed us to just downsize and put all of our resources and time into the sauna blankets and developing more products for people at home. During that time, we were focusing on bringing more wellness technologies to the world. So we launched our second product, which is our infrared PEMF mat, which is
favorite
yeah,
thing. I was just on it before this.
Yeah, it's for all those people out there that love the healing power of infrared but don't want the commitment of sweating.
Mm-hmm.
And they want it more for like the downing cortisol and putting your body into parasympathetic state, which is rest and digest, or dropping into meditation. And we paired it with another powerful wellness technology called PEMF, which is pulse electromagnetic frequency, which is a technology that virtually does the same as infrared, but a little bit differently. But it all contributes to, again, downing cortisol levels and putting your body into a state of rest and digest, which is the state that we need to get into more as a society that's very like, stress driven. And, we kind of do all these things throughout our day to like amplify, our cortisol levels, like drinking coffee or working and being on email or just being exposed to blue light, that we really need to like take that time to like recover and do those technologies that do the opposite of what, coffee and stress does, which is really just putting your body into parasympathetic state, which is rest and digest. And we have our mat that you can lay on. I like to work out on it. I like to meditate on it because it helps me drop into meditation. But I always work from my infrared PEMF mat too as well, so that I can stay calm and relaxed while I'm working from home. It's just an amazing tool for everyone. I feel like that out of all of our products really speaks to everyone in the family, moms, busy moms, but also hardworking dads and stressed dads. But my kids love it. If you have animal at home, you cannot get your animal off of it because it's just such healing frequencies and it feels so good for everyone. So it's really like a whole family pleaser too as well.
It's so good. And we'll definitely make sure we have links and resources for all these things. Like you mentioned, like we have had such a cultural shift. And I think especially as I'm sure you can relate, like these busy driven women
Mm-hmm.
that are natural go-getters. It's so easy to get pulled into this rhythm and like a rushing women syndrome. And a lot of the things that we're doing tend to be surrounded by blue light, junk light, this environment that our body is not designed to be in. Now, that being said, a lot of these biohacking tools are essentially just like recreating nature, right?
Exactly.
So the
Yep.
red light that a lot of us seek out in these fancy beds and all these, wonderful experiences are really, if we could just go out and watch sunrise and sunset and limit some of our blue junk light, we wouldn't need them. And so I would love to think that, that's something that we could all do. It's absolutely something that I've worked into my life. Like after a day of filming a lot of podcasts or being on an email, I will absolutely do some grounding. We now live in Miami, so it makes it really easy to do that all times of the year. But that being said, we were recently living in New Jersey and I had purchased your PEMF mat and the sauna blanket.
Yeah.
And from like October until April, they literally lived in our family room.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a second PMF blanket because the kids would have friends over and they'd watch a movie and like the kids just took over the mat. And I think especially as a busy woman, like the tools I'm constantly looking for are those ones that help me drop in very quickly.
Correct.
And I will literally feel like I'm not going to be able to sleep. I'm just wired. I had an exciting day or like traveled or whatever. I will lay on that mat and I'm like deep sleep, dreaming, talking in my sleep. It's so freaking effective. I love it so much. And I have to ask you, what does DOSE stand for in HigherDOSE? Because I remember there was an intention behind the acronym.
Yeah. DOSE stands for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And those are your four main happy chemicals. So our slogan at HigherDOSE is all about getting high naturally and like how do you release those happy chemicals? We really focus on like wellness tech that not only makes you look better, but makes you feel better. Because we believe that everyone, no matter what you are, who you are, what your health goals are, everyone agrees that they just want to feel better. And it's funny that you bring up kids because I just feel like even kids nowadays are dealing with so many more like stressors and they're watching more TV and tablets, not being outside as much. So they really need these tools at a younger age too as well because they have like anxiety already. And then dealing with the pandemic on top of that and all the fear that's based around it, it's such a nice tool for them too as well. And it really does come down to just trying to release those happy chemicals. And I think, the biohackers series is not just about like communicating our wellness tech and the benefits of it, but it's just like all sorts of life's hacks that you could do, like you were saying, like walking outdoors barefoot, grounding, watching the sunrise come up, go down, turning off your devices after like 6 o'clock, hot and cold therapy. Like there's just so many things out there that don't really cost that much that
Mhm.
can really make such a difference on your biology, but also your mental health too, at the end of the day.
Yeah, you guys have done such an incredible job. Let's dive into biohackers. I think I've watched every single one of the episodes. I'm obsessed. I love them. I think something that's really fun is you guys literally touch the topics that I feel like so many women want to know about, but maybe are scared to ask. Vaginal rejuvenation. You and
Yeah.
Katie went and had this experience of aging your vagina in reverse. So let's just start with that one. What was that like?
Well, Katie is very different than I'm. She is in a relationship, but she hasn't had kids. Where, I just had twins, and that was obviously very hard on my body, but also my vagina too as well. So like, I had very different goals than she had. So radio frequency of the vagina is really amazing because they use the red light and the heat and the radio frequency to do the same thing that we do on our skin, but inside the vagina. So it actually like tightens the vagina, produces more healthy cells, and ultimately like kind of re-engages those muscles that we lose control of over time. Like, I know a lot of women struggle with like incontinence afterwards. And, when I went to deliver my twins, I was pushing so hard that I literally had my bladder prolapsing, and everything was just very different after having kids. So when I had this service done, I noticed such a difference, not only in my like orgasms afterwards, but just in the way that my vagina looked, because it kind of like brought everything back up and inside. And it was just in one session that it did that. And I think that if more women knew that there were tools out there and technology that could help them, we would do it. But instead, we don't even know it exists. And we just kind of like suffer
Mhm.
afterwards and just be like, oh, well, I guess that's what happens when you have kids.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be that way. And it's unfortunate that we live in a world, Western society, where you deliver your kids, you go in the next day, the doctor checks, make sure you're not bleeding from the inside out, but then gives you no tools on things that you can do to repair and rejuvenate and help you recover to get back to the way that you once were.
Yeah.
And, like I feel like I really want to like do more research into things out there that you could do, because like I dealt with things like diastasis recti after having twins and still do. And I know as a chiropractor, the importance of having your ab muscles be able to go back to the way that they were to support your back. I had so many like back issues afterwards where like I have like chronic back pain in my back, and
Hmm.
I would go to pick up my twins and I would get like back spasms. And that's because my muscles did not go back to the way that they should have. On top of that, like I was going back out and I was like running and I was working out very hard, but yet, my pelvic floor was not the way that it should be. And my organs were all pushed down. Then I was actually doing more harm than good. So
Definitely.
there's these amazing tools out there like vagina rejuvenation through radio frequency. We
Mhm.
also did PRP of the vagina too as well, which was like incredible. And that just like helped bring everything back in and back to the way that it was. And then of course I did like multiple things. Like I worked with like osteopaths, I worked with a chiropractor, I did Mayan stomach massages too as well, which was very helpful. But then just a bunch of exercises to learn to close my diastasis recti. Whereas now, fast forward 3 years later, I finally feel like I'm back to the way that I once was before I have kids. And all of my like health issues have kind of like disappeared after that. So that's a huge focus for us, is just like really being able to support women through all different stages of hormones, but also like how to biohack to get ready for pregnancy, during pregnancy, and then after pregnancy too as well, so that you can look and feel your best.
Yeah. And just a quick question on that. How has that impacted your ability to parent your children?
I would say, okay, so here's just a little bit, and this kind of leads into my ketamine experience. But after I had my twins, I was much like you, where I was just so focused on them, just trying to like keep up breastfeeding two babies. I wasn't really like, doing the same movement exercises. I wasn't, meditating. I was still running a business. That my mental health and physical health really suffered. That about a year into having my twins, I had a grand mal seizure, which is a pretty big deal. I like totally wet the bed, almost bit my tongue off, and lost all control. And that for me was just a big wake up call for the way that I was not putting myself first. And I needed to put myself first. And from that moment on, I literally have made sure that I do something for myself every day, making space for it. And it usually consists of having my kids too, right? Like you can do these things with your kids too. And I think it's like so good and healthy to like show your kids that mommy's taking time to like meditate. I'm taking time to do my sauna. I'm taking time to do my dry brushing, like I'm doing more like restorative style workouts, etc.
100%. You're role modeling for them while you're doing it. And it's just a matter of verbalizing what you're doing, and it creates that boundary so you can do it and you're teaching them.
Yeah. And I just got rid of this constant feeling of guilt, which I'm sure so many moms have. Like you feel like you're not doing anything well enough. I wasn't, with my kids and connecting with them enough. I wasn't doing my job as an entrepreneur enough, and I wasn't taking care of myself and my body enough. So I really like had to take space and time to like sift through my day to day to figure out like what is serving me for my like higher being of myself, my kids, and my business, and what is not. And that's when I really like rethought of like maybe not drinking alcohol anymore because it doesn't contribute to like the way I feel the next day. It's like kind of like a cheap hit where you feel good in the moment, but then feel a lot worse afterwards. I go to sleep when my kids go to sleep, making sure that I'm doing my red light therapy and my sauna blanket, and I'm doing body work. And, I'm taking time after I'm doing my busy day to like step outside and be barefoot on the grass so I can calm my nervous system down. So when I go to be with my kids, I can be calm and connected. I like take Epsom salt bath with them. I changed it over to magnesium zestine, but for anyone out there, I really highly suggest doing salt baths with your kids. My kids are obsessed with it, and it's really good for them too as well, so they can absorb magnesium. It's just these like small little things in life that I kind of had to like prioritize and make sure that everything I thought about what I was doing was contributing to me feeling my best, and also my kids, and also my relationship, and also my business. And then everything else kind of just like faded away.
It's amazing because it's so cliche. We've all heard that thing, put your oxygen mask on first as a mom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to be like, okay, I can't take the bath. I can't go get the massage. I can't, do all the things. My life is crazy. But just like you said, it can fit in these little things that eventually stack up. And what I find, I'm wondering if you feel the same, just little things, what they actually help me do is they help me be present.
Yeah.
Right. So they help me be either present with my job or present with my kids. They help me be present with whoever's in front of me.
Yeah.
And I think some of that comes from, as a mom, we've all experienced trauma. And whether it's the pregnancies, the birth of our children, our childhood leading up to that. And I know you talked about that in your experience with ketamine in biohackers. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so this was my favorite biohackers episode because it was the most profound. So I told you a little bit about my grand mal seizure that I had a year after the kids were born. And then 6 months later, my son had a seizure, which I guess is quite typical of young babies that, if they're sick and they're kind of fighting off a virus, and then they get a really high fever, and then you don't kind of drop the temperature like more calmly. Like I didn't know enough to take him out of his pajamas and get him really cool naturally and put a cool cloth on his head. I just thought like, oh my gosh, I need to give him Tylenol. And it went from one extreme to the next. And then of course the virus itself. And I experienced him having a seizure 6 months later. And it was just so heavy on me. Also carrying twins, I went 5 weeks early and had a pretty traumatic delivery with specifically my daughter, who got stuck in the birth canal and pretty much came out like bruised to no, like she was just bruised everywhere, especially from her eyebrows back. She had like a swollen neck. She literally looked like a fish, and she wasn't breathing properly, and they just like immediately took them off and took them to the NICU. So, I always want to have another child just so I can kind of heal my birth experience, because it was like I felt like I had no control, and it was the worst experience. And I look at these mothers that like do that, 40 days of like relaxation and have people cook for them, and they don't leave their home, and like how important that is for healing.
Yeah.
Where I had the opposite. I was like stress, didn't know if my baby girl had brain damage, literally like drove 40 minutes after having emergency C-section, which I shouldn't have been driving every day to the NICU to just sit in this uncomfortable chair with my babies on me. And it was just super traumatic. So from that time on, I really had a lot of PTSD that was not a healthy amount of PTSD, where I was just in fear of my kids always being sick or injured. Like my husband would take them, to the store, and he would take both the twins. And I would just lose my mind thinking that they were going to get into a car accident. I would imagine someone coming through the window and stealing my children throughout the night unless they were next to me. And then the worst was like trying to get a babysitter who I had quite a relationship with. When my husband and I were out, I would just imagine her doing the worst things to them, just not healthy. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize how much that was affecting me and my mental health. And when I did the ketamine experience, I worked with the psychotherapist before, and he confirmed I definitely have PTSD. So then when they assign you a therapist, you get to work on your intentions. And my intentions were definitely to not live in fear anymore. So what you'll see on the Biohackers episode is my 2 ketamine journeys. And I pretty much like relived all the trauma of my ketamine experience. But unlike traditional therapy, where someone's kind of telling you how maybe you should have handled it, you actually get to relive it and reprogram your brain yourself. And I literally like had this like trauma, reliving the seizure, shaking. And I like told myself like, everyone's fine now. There's no need to like amplify this anymore. And I like remember myself deep breathing and like letting go of all the trauma. And then just the rewiring of like, wow, I'm so grateful that I have, healthy kids, and I'm healthy, and we're all fine right now. Like, I'm just going to let this go. And from that day on, I can say that I probably feel like 70 to 80% less stress and worry around my kids than I used to have, which is by far the most freeing thing I could ever say, because I don't think no one could have told me in any therapy session how to like let go of that trauma. Mm-hmm. But to literally be your own therapist through ketamine was a very empowering and powerful experience that I feel like everyone should have access to. And you just don't hear that on the day to day, that things like ketamine, which have all these like awful things, like it's a horse tranquilizer, blah, blah, blah. When really it's also an anesthesia, where they use that with babies when they go into surgery, because it's much more gentle on the body. And it's actually like an anti-seizure medication too as well. And when used in therapy and when used in session, can be extremely profound and healing for somebody. So if anyone out there is experiencing any sort of like PTSD or like cycling thoughts that are unhealthy, things like ketamine therapy really help reprogram the brain, as the brain is plastic, and you can get years of therapy in literally 1 to 2 sessions.
And how long? So in your sessions, you're laying down pretty much on you were on the ground on blankets. Like it looks very like massage table-esque, almost very relaxing, very zen, eye pillow. How long was that whole session?
The whole session was about an hour, but my second session felt like I experienced death in an eternity too as well. So it felt much longer for me. But pretty much I love Field Trip. They're a great organization. Like I said, you work with a psychotherapist before, get your diagnosis, then they assign to you a therapist. I did a couple therapy phone calls before, just setting intentions. And then you come in for the session and they give you your own private room. You do it in the room with a therapist. There's a nurse practitioner there taking all your vitals, and they administer the ketamine through just like a needle. So it felt like this safe container and space for me to just like let go and drop in and do the work that I needed to do. I highly do suggest that if you do decide to go with, ketamine as therapy, that you choose a place that you feel very safe with and can set some clear intentions. But yeah, I literally was there for an hour. I probably felt a little groggy for about 30 minutes afterwards. And then after that, for about a good solid week after, you feel so high on life, so happy, so grounded, so connected to everybody. And I really love that, because I've also done things like ayahuasca, which was pretty profound. It felt like more ancestral work and more like maybe kind of past life trauma work, which is very deep. But I felt pretty ungrounded for a little bit after
Mm-hmm.
therapies like that. Whereas ketamine, you just like gets you out of your head and into your body and back to who you truly are in the core. So
So
that for me felt really good.
yeah, it sounds more easily accessible for a lot of people. So it's basically all in a couple sessions, an hour and a half, 2 hours each, some high on life for a week. You can reintegrate right into family life, it sounds like, feel
Right
great.
away.
And it mimics years of therapy and perhaps gets you results that therapy couldn't even get to. It sounds like it cracked you open and healed so many wounds.
It was exactly that. And yeah, when you watch the episode, you just see it was like such an emotional purge for me. And, I was pretty vulnerable during the whole experience. And to kind of have someone filming you while you're doing that, can be quite intense quite intense in itself. But it actually wasn't, because literally, like, the ketamine just helps you drop into your consciousness, your core center, you as your home. And it just felt so warming and so healing. So I didn't even realize the cameras were there.
Mm.
I just felt so connected to myself. And like, you drop ego, like that's the number one thing that goes, like ego, what you look like, how you're describing this. I didn't even care who I was talking to afterwards. I
Uh-huh.
was just like so feeling myself.
Does that part last? Do you feel like major ego drop after the fact too, or just in the moment? You mean as far as like comfort? We all have ego, right? We all have,
Yeah,
different aspects of that. Did that part change for you?
that part changed for me for sure. Like, I feel like forever I can always remember that experience and get aspects of it again, because it felt so real afterwards and it felt so ingrained and I felt like I really knew it. So I can always like go back there and just like think about that experience, especially like when I'm going back into my like gratitude practice, or I notice myself having the same thoughts of like something's going to happen to my kids, my husband's not picking up the phone, like I can drop back into that feeling very easily.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like you'll take that on forever. But in the experience, that's the first thing that goes is your ego. You feel that just like melt away, like nothing matters, you know?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I know a lot of these therapies, thankfully, again, that were kind of either off label, or a lot of people don't want to talk about plant medicine, or some circles aren't accepting of it. And it's not for everybody, right?
It's
Like
not for
everything has
everybody.
a time and a place. But a lot of people are getting really good results with some of these things.
Yeah, and I feel like it's also just like a quick way to get there too as well. It's a little bit of a hack. Like, I have to say, my dad also had very bad PTSD. He was a firefighter, saw some really awful things throughout his life, and at the age of 60, like took up drinking alcohol and smoking and just not being connected. And he went back to church and became a born again Christian, and I saw him heal himself through the same way. It took a
Mm-hmm.
lot longer, and he has very different values, but it was like the two very different experiences got you to the same place. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely not everything is going to be the same for everyone, but I do encourage people to be open-minded and do your research, because I think that ultimately we don't want to walk around with so much pain anymore. And I feel like, especially after like the pandemic and just the uncertainty in the world and just how we're getting exposed to like so much awfulness that's happening in the world, it can easily take hold of us and we can live in fear. But there are tools out there that can take you out of fear and put you back into love, and unconditional love. And they're all the same. And however you want to get there, I just really encourage trying to get there.
Definitely. And knowing what's all out there, ketamine and a lot of these, whether it's microdosing or ayahuasca, a lot of these things have a lot of research behind them. There's an organization I know called MAPS that's really getting a lot of the science behind how these work, why do they work, who are they for, and a lot of veterans, a lot of people that have these major PTSDs, anxieties, mental illness, they're getting a lot of good results. And so I think it's just really important to stay open and
Mhm.
to listen to the science as it's catching up. I want to talk about another experience that you had that basically it sounded like this was my other favorite episode, in addition to your ketamine one, where it mimicked some of the DMT stimulating effects of ayahuasca, but it was all natural through breath work. You had a really
Mm.
intense breath work session.
Yeah, I have had the pleasure of doing multiple breathwork courses. I studied with Aaron Telford too, and it was the same style of holotropic breathwork. where you literally breathe in through your belly and then into your chest. And it's like, it is crazy how quickly you could get to that DMT like state, even kind of ketamine like state through breath work. And it was also like a really profound session because, again, I think they're doing a really great job of creating it like a safe container where you're in this dome, it's all dark, you're wearing headphones, so you can't hear the people next to you, you're shutting your eyes and you're dropping in and you're having your own personalized experience, which I think is really important because it's really hard to be able to get into that state when, say, you're at home and your kids are like in the background and you like have your checklist and it's really hard. So they're creating this like a really amazing environment for you to be able to like drop in very quickly, but you can achieve these at home if you can kind of create that environment for yourself. But another thing I love about it is that it's literally free and you don't really need any crazy skills or like long course in order to get there. There's like all these like holotropic YouTube like experiences that you can just like follow online. And again, it really just like helps you drop in, get out of your head and into your body and feel where your blockages are, breathe into those, not put any judgment on it. You don't need to find out why you're blocked there or whatever, but just breathe into it and release it through the breath work. And yeah, it's just pretty wild how light you feel afterwards. And then you start to realize like, wow, how much like stress and emotions can get stored in the body and end up causing you a lot of your pain, which I'm not sure how much you talk about that on your podcast, but when people are dealing with like chronic pain, where sometimes it has to do with like pretty physical reasons, like slip discs or car accidents or whatnot. But in other cases, a lot of the times it's just like stored emotions. Mm-hmm. And, it's really hard to like unblock those, but things like holotropic breath work can do exactly that.
What's like a regular day in the life of Lauren?
I'm just going to show you quickly. This is my little.
This is the real side.
Yeah, this is my little station. So
real
I have
life side.
my infrared PEMF mat that's sitting on my chair here, and then I have.
I love your slippers.
Yes, I have my full body red light system. So I like to sit on my infrared PEMF mat, and then sit in front of my red light. It's a full body one, so I literally like sit there naked so that my whole body gets the red light. And then I usually put on like headphones and I'll follow some form of like led meditation or like led breath work. And I do that for like 20 minutes most days. I just like allow myself the space and time to breathe, relax, let the PEMF mat do the work and helping me drop in, get all the amazing benefits of red light, not only for the body and the mitochondria, but also the skin benefits. And I just like stack these powerful experiences all together in 20 minutes so that I really never have an excuse not to do it, which I think as a busy mom, that's one of the most important things is like finding ways to like stack all of these things. If you find meditation hard, use the infrared PEMF mat to get you there. Add the red light face mask. Use your detox drops before you go in, dry brush before you go in. Like you can get so much done in just like 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And there's really no excuse for it because if you think about like how much time we spend on like social media or just like watching TV, which, I like to watch TV. I tend to not put on any device after 6 o'clock because I want to ensure I have good deep sleep. But everyone has that 20 minutes in the day to do something for themselves. So I just use all my tools to really like help me get there and get the most impact for the, least amount of time.
Definitely. You can even tap into breath work at stoplights. Like you're not doing anything, you're breathing anyway. So put a little intention behind it. Boom, done. If you did that at every stoplight.
That, and I find like when I'm waiting for something, because I always find I'm the most impatient when I'm waiting for, an appointment or like, someone's
grocery line.
Yep, the grocery line. And normally I'm like, I try to get done so much in a day. So like I always find like I just use like simple breath work exercises in those moments. And it's a compound interest. It all builds up towards something. You don't need to just like do it all in an hour in order for it to be effective. Mm-hmm. Every little bit counts.
It's like the little bits fitting in and throughout the day. Love that. Okay. I have to ask, with all the things that you've done in your past, so many incredible things, what's next for you?
Oh man. I feel like we haven't scratched the surface of the series Biohackers. there's still so much I want to explore myself. Like I said, I'm very interested in biohacking pregnancy, fertility, during pregnancy, and then post pregnancy, which could be like a whole series in itself. I
Definitely.
felt like I didn't really have the resources that I wish I had when I got pregnant 4 years ago. And I just want to redo that whole experience. I would do it totally different. I would have like a chiropractor, like while I'm delivering or just before, to like line up my body and the babies in the right perfect place, and making sure I'm like doing the right breath work. And like I said, like just the support that you could have afterwards. I would love to just, have someone, help cook food and not leave my house and just like do it properly. But I'm also very passionate about like the idea of, detoxing before you have a baby, and then just epigenetics, like working on all the stuff that is causing you any health issues, to get to the root of the problem, so that you're not like passing on any dirty genes, which is like kind of like a whole new area for me of focus. I'm just so interested in gene testing, and then also living your lifestyle based on your genes. And I have this amazing practitioner I work with that does muscle testing too. So she can like muscle test which genes are turned on, which aren't. And then she like helps you with your diet and your lifestyle and what supplements to like help turn the genes on or off that I want to, so that I can pass on those genes on to my kids. This is like a whole thing that we don't even think about when having kids. And I think is such an interesting focus for me, especially like as I get older. I'm going to be 38, and I do want to have another child, and what that looks like going into it as someone that's older. I just think there's so much information there. And I think that biohacking pregnancy is the ultimate form of biohacking.
I'm so excited. I'm it sounds like that's what you guys are going to do. I can feel your passion. You're absolutely going to do it. It's such an important time, it's in our culture, we spend more time looking at the car seat or the crib. Like that, you're basically what we're doing leading up to pregnancy. You have the opportunity to make the soil really healthy. When you make
Exactly.
the baby, that's the seed, and you've got to spend God, at least 3 months, but like my patients, I would ask them, give me a year. Like,
Yeah.
let's just give you the best soil possible, because that's what you're creating for your baby. I mean, babies are now born with, what is it, like 300 chemicals in their cord blood. So
Yeah.
they're starting off so toxic, so sick. This is the first generation of kids that's predicted to not outlive their parents, not because we don't have the resources, but because people aren't, either they don't know about them or they're just not valued in our culture, which is so unfortunate. So I would love, love, love to see that more women need access to that. It's so incredible. We can literally change the world through things like that, because you're
I
creating
agree.
healthier generations. And these kids are such leaders. They're so incredible, and they have such opportunity, especially when they can have the best health.
Yeah, and supporting the mom too. Like I didn't feel good when I was carrying, because I didn't deal with my like hormone issues fully before I had my kids, and I like always felt crazy nauseous. My skin was all broken out. Like I definitely had strep, which I definitely passed on to my kids. And there's just like so many things that I wish I thought of getting to the bottom of before having kids. But it's funny, I'm just learning things a little bit backwards. And again, I agree, there's just not information out there. No one talks about this. We spend more time on our list of stuff that we need than we do like researching vitality and epigenetics and feeling good and balancing hormones and like detox. And it's just like kind of crazy. But I guess it's like our culture and the way that we are programmed is just to like consume, and you can just buy it, and that's the quick solution versus like doing the hard work, which I just feel like nowadays everything I do, whether it's what I'm eating, how I'm working out, who I'm exposing myself to, how I'm working, is all very much focused on like, is this going to contribute to my greater good and make me feel better, or is it not? Like, do I need that second cup of coffee? You know, do I need to feel like I need to socialize and go to parties because that's what you're supposed to do when you have a business? Like, there's just so many things that I'm just like rethinking and stopping and saying, is this going to make me feel better or not? And that comes down to food too, as well, like what you put into your body. It's a really helpful tool in like helping guide you on like making healthier choices with food too.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think, a big premise that a lot of people maybe forget about is we're designed to feel really good.
Yeah.
We're designed to thrive. And we're designed to be pregnant. We're
Yeah.
designed to make babies, and we're
Yeah.
designed to birth. Like we used
Yeah.
to crouch down in fields and pop those babies out and
Yeah.
put them in our arms, and everything happened naturally. And there's been like this like split and divide in time where pregnancy is now treated as an illness unless proven otherwise, when it should be
Yes.
the reverse.
Yep.
So, what's key to that, and I'm so excited because it sounds like you're going to have another opportunity. And I think we all look back thinking, I wish I could have done it differently, right?
Yep.
But that's part of our story. And
Yep.
that's how we help others. I think it sets us on a trajectory. But I think what's key is choosing your providers and the people you surround yourself with, either in life, like building healthy lifestyle, and especially in pregnancy and delivery, to be around women who know that our bodies are meant to do this, who remind you of that.
Yeah.
Our first child was born, we had intended a home birth, and my water broke at 35 weeks. And so we were rushed to the NICU. And my midwife was like, listen, you're about to walk into intervention city. And it was. And thankfully, Jason, my husband, just kind of, he like played the role of a doula. He's functional medicine, chiropractor, like knew all the things. So it worked out well, but it was still, I had PTSD. My second two were just this, completely different experience. But where I was going with that was, there was one point when I was delivering Kaya and I felt like I was going to throw up. And in my head, I got really scared. I was like, why do I feel this way? And I looked at her and I asked her, and it's like, she said exactly what I needed to say. She's like, everything you're doing is exactly what's supposed to be happening. Your body wants to push everything out and your baby's next. And I was like, great, wonderful. Like now I'm in it. So I think surrounding yourself with like women that make you feel like a goddess. We should feel like a goddess in that whole process. And it's a major shift. And so I think we just all focus on what we can for ourselves. And then for, teaching other women, because it's has such a huge impact.
I couldn't agree more. I would say the number one thing I struggle with in life since I was young is just being fear-based. Everything I do is driven by fear. And it's like the day-to-day struggle with that. And my thing that I always go back to is just like feeling that I need to just feel safe and just trust, safe and trust, safe and trust. And this is like a mantra of mine, but I couldn't agree more. It's like you need to surround yourself with a community of people and women that like help lift you up and give you a safe place to really have that trust. Which, if you don't have that now, they're out there. You just need to call it in and rethink some of the people in your life that don't empower you and like help contribute to this like fear-based society, I guess.
Absolutely. Create your tribe, right? That's so
Create
important.
your tribe.
You're the result of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah. Actually, moving to Austin, we just moved to Austin. We tried Miami first, but we were like living in South Beach, and it wasn't really like, and in like a 2-bedroom apartment. It was too small for us and just didn't seem realistic. But we ended up choosing Austin because of the community and because of the people. And there's just an amazing community of like health and wellness people, like healers, just alternative thinkers. And it's just been like amazing for us. So we really had to like relocate out of upstate New York to somewhere that kind of like fit more of the way that we think and, support the same values.
It's so important. I love Austin is beautiful. It has such a health conscious community. I actually have a goal of creating like somewhat of an Austin feel in Miami. That's Jason and I's secret dream. We're on a path. We're gonna make some changes to the community here because it's here. It's there. It's such a mindful, conscious community. People just need the places. So we want to help create the places.
Amazing. Well, if there's any way I can support that too, my business partners out there, I know a few other great people out there, but I totally agree. It's not so obvious in Miami, but you can create it there because it's just so easy to be healthy there. Oh my gosh.
And in anywhere, we can, as women, so women that are listening to this, just as we wrap up, you can find your community within your community. You have to look kind of hard in some places more than others, but you can vote with your dollars. And if there's local coffee shops popping up or your yoga studio, I think there's really good places to find healthy, like-minded community. You just got to seek it out.
I agree.
Is there any last tips? This has been such an incredible podcast with you. I'm so looking forward to everyone. Please check out Biohackers on YouTube. It's life-changing. These episodes are incredible. And you guys cite everyone that you went to, where to go to get these kind of therapies. Such a great tool. We'll post some codes for the products in HigherDOSE in the show notes. I've got a great discount Dr. Saunders code that people can have access to one of my favorite tools. And then Lauren, any final thoughts before we shut down?
I would say definitely if you're curious about any of these things, reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram is just my first and last name. I'm always open to help. I want to be a part of the community, even though it might not be in person. But if you're looking for any sort of direction, any sort of advice, any sort of content or podcast, I think podcast sharing is so powerful too. I'm in this WhatsApp group of amazing women. We all share great podcasts too as well. So that's always super helpful. But please reach out to me if you guys have any questions, and definitely check out HigherDOSE if you're looking for any amazing holistic healing wellness tools. We have them all. And thank you for having me on your podcast. And it's such a pleasure to connect with you. It seems like we have a lot in common.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm so glad we finally got some face-to-face time. And thank you for everything that you're doing. And thanks for taking the time with us today, Lauren.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. There are so many resources for you to check out from here to get to know Lauren and the things that she experienced and went through in order to get herself to a better place, not only for her kids and for her family, but mainly for herself. I really would love if you would put a like under the video if you liked it, which I assume you did. Go ahead and subscribe so that you don't miss any of my incredible upcoming episodes with a lot of amazing guests. And most importantly, please share this message with a friend. I know there's at least one woman, if not a handful of women in your life that would benefit from the information that Lauren shared. Thank you so much. When I started this platform, back up, and promised my, God, sorry, I'm talking so slow. Nick, I lost the life. If you could please read. And most importantly, I know there's at least one, boom, done, bam.